Rui was just an unpopular college kid, until he woke up as Ludwig, the cruel villain of a brutal game. In the game's original story, his fate was sealed: betrayal, downfall, and a bloody end. But this time, he refuses to be the ugly orc. He trains in secret, sharpens his will, and his new handsome face draws heroines like moths to a flame. Can he break free from a doomed script and turn villainy into victory? Let's find out. This story begins in the Imperial Castle. Ilsa, Ludwig's maid, told him that from today on she would serve him. The protagonist wondered why all this was happening. Why was he reborn as the protagonist of a hardcore game? Revenge of the Ugly Orc is a hardcore game in which he plays the role of the Prince of the Waldburg Empire. His name is Ludwig von Waldburg. He led the empire and began to capture all the western countries of the continent. Princesses, sorceresses, women of the order, and even ordinary village girls became his personal slaves. In his past life, he completely completed this game. It is very similar to an RPG. Only in the end, the prince always met his death. After capturing all the countries, people will rebel and execute the prince. Other endings are no better. He died at the hands of hired killers or ended his own life. There is no good ending in this game. The probability of his survival is 0. Ilsa is also one of the main characters of the game. She is the daughter of Viscount Hildebrandt and also became his slave. He looked at the girl and asked her if this was their first meeting. She answered that it was. The protagonist asked her what year and month it was. Ilsa looked at him in bewilderment and said that today was March 17, 270, according to the imperial calendar. The protagonist was surprised. This was 5 years before the beginning of the game's plot. At their first meeting, Ludwig took advantage of Ilsa. Initially, the game began with this scene. The protagonist thought that perhaps in these 5 years, he would be able to change history. He must avoid a bad ending at all costs. Ilsa timidly asked him what his first order would be. The protagonist answered her that he did not need anything for now. He added that he was glad to meet her. The girl looked at him in amazement. She must have been very surprised that the crown prince was talking to her so politely. To be honest, he had never talked to such a nice girl, so he was a little worried. Ilsa apologized to him and said in bewilderment, she came here to take care of him. She is ready to carry out any of his orders. MC muttered embarrassedly, like, is that so? But he really doesn't need anything right now. The girl, not believing her ears, leaned closer to him and asked him again, what did he say? Did she do something wrong? The protagonist objected to her. Nothing of the sort. Let her calm down. He is just grateful that she is ready to help such a freak like him. Ilsa answered him in a stuttering voice from surprise. In that case, she will go to her room. The protagonist remembered how the princess of the neighboring country, Sophia Marie Berg, capriciously turned to her father and declared, pointing her finger at the protagonist, that she would never marry such an ugly orc. When Ludwig was 13, he was supposed to marry this princess. These were the princess's hurtful words at their first meeting. He was a very sensitive child, so her words deeply hurt his heart. In addition, rumors appeared that he had a very cruel character and was interested in any cute girl. The princess's father categorically stated that he would not marry his cute daughter to an orc. When the rumors reached the protagonist, he isolated himself from society. To console his son, the emperor decided to give him a gift, a girl who agreed to absolutely everything. When Ludwig used her, it changed him forever. In his past life, the protagonist felt sorry for Ludwig because they are very similar. At school, and even at university, the protagonist also avoided contact with others and did not communicate with girls at all. Now the protagonist thought, at least he did not attack Ilsa. This already changed the story. However, he still had to conquer other countries. Invading other countries was not Ludwig's desire. It was the emperor's desire. It turns out that if he gets rid of the emperor, it will certainly change the plot, but he is unlikely to succeed. The emperor was the only one who was on his son's side. Without him, the nobles will immediately get rid of Ludwig. This is a standard development of the plot. What should he do? He went to the mirror, looked at himself, and thought, maybe first of all he should get in shape. After all, the emperor is a very attractive man. The protagonist decided that he would change himself. First of all, he needed to lose weight. If he could establish normal relations with all the heroes, then he would be able to avoid the end of the game. After some time, the emperor came to him with 2 beautiful girls. He turned to his son and asked him if he liked these girls. Otto von Waldburg in the game was a real tyrant and a very stubborn man who loved his son. The protagonist desperately told his father that there was no need to send him so many girls. Ilsa was enough for him. The girl was from a family of fallen aristocrats. In order to revive her house, she agreed to carry out any orders of the emperor. She was ready to sacrifice her interests for the sake of her family. The emperor was surprised by his son's answer. Did he not like it? He did not expect Ludwig to be so reserved. Otto came up to him, patted him on the head, and said that he was glad to see that his son was better. He continued that these idiots from the kingdom of Berg were to blame for everything. He just could not wait until he could destroy them. The emperor told the protagonist not to worry. He would definitely have the opportunity to take revenge. The emperor left. The protagonist looked at his back and chuckled. He He was even surprised how a father could tolerate such an unbearable son. But now, inside this body, there was he, the protagonist. Suddenly, such pain shot through his head that he screamed and grabbed it. It hurt so much. He felt like his head was about to explode. The protagonist did not understand what was happening. Ilsa came running to his scream. The protagonist lost consciousness. After some time, when he opened his eyes, his maid leaned over him, and with relief through her tears noted that he had finally come to his senses. The protagonist was touched by her concern. He asked her why she was so worried about him. The girl smiled and answered him, "Isn't it obvious? He is her master." He thought, right, in the game she was a faithful maid who always followed Ludwig. The protagonist assured her that he was fine and that she had nothing to worry about. He then thanked her for her attitude. She told him that he was very different from the rumors she had heard about him. The protagonist asked her in surprise, "Was it true?" The girl sheepishly said that it was. The MC noted that she did not have to sit with him all the time, that she could go and rest. Ilsa bowed to him, said that she understood him, and she left. The protagonist, after waiting for her to leave, decided to start with squats. After this exercise, he fell to the floor, relaxed his body, and thought how hard it was. The next day, he told Ilsa that from that day on he wanted to eat mostly vegetables. He also asked her to reduce his portion. The girl almost dropped the jug from her hands in surprise. She asked him what he was talking about. Maybe he had lost his appetite? The protagonist answered her that he just wanted to lose weight. Ilsa's mouth dropped open in amazement. Was her master telling the truth? He, ignoring her surprise, said that after the meal, he would have a request for her. The girl readily expressed her desire to help him. She only asked him for a little time to prepare. The protagonist was indignant. She had misunderstood. In fact, he would like her to join his training. He would like her to become his mentor. Ilsa, blushing with embarrassment, remarked, he was talking about that. MC was embarrassed. He thought she would misunderstand him. It was all because of those damn rumors. The maid told him that if he so wished to make her his mentor, she would not mind. The protagonist expressed his opinion that she was perfect for the role of his trainer. She was very capable. He knew that her family specialized in the art of stealth and assassination. In the game, they specialized in fast and deadly attacks. The protagonist fell to his knees in front of her and said that he really wanted to change. Please let her help him with this. Ilsa stared at him in amazement. He continued that the princess of the neighboring country harshly rejected him. Despite being the crown prince, he is still not engaged to anyone. The protagonist was almost in tears, including Princess Sophia. Many people despise him. Of course, he will not be able to change immediately, but he wants to be recognized at least in his own home. The girl came up to him and said that she will help him in any way she can. The protagonist happily exclaimed that he will work hard and he will live up to her expectations. He can withstand any training. They went outside. Ilsa asked him if he is really ready. The protagonist answered her that he is. He is relying on her. The girl answered him that she will also make every effort for this. The protagonist thanked her, addressing her by her first name, but the maid said that from now on, he should call her instructor. He asked her again in surprise, "Instructor?" Ilsa smiled and noticed that she did not hear an answer from him. The protagonist told her that it would be so. He understood everything. She exclaimed that this was great. Then, they would start training right now. They would train right here. The girl pointed to the highest balcony and noted that, unfortunately, he had gained too much excess weight during all this time, and it would not be possible to lose it with regular training and diet. Simply losing weight would not be enough, so they would use body transformation. She continued that they would train using a special method that was used in her family. The protagonist asked her in surprise, "Really?" Ilsa confirmed that it was. Let him rely on her. The protagonist exclaimed that he was ready for anything. He would do whatever it took. They went to the very balcony that she had shown him at the very beginning of their conversation and put him over the railing. He asked her in amazement, did she want him to jump from here? She stretched out her hand to push him off the balcony. The protagonist objected. What was she doing? The girl spoke firmly, no excuses. She simply pushed him off the balcony. When the protagonist landed on the ground, he exclaimed in surprise, "What did that mean? Did it not hurt at all?" The girl asked him, did he see that there were no problems? The protagonist thought, so she knew everything? Ilsa told him to climb back onto the balcony and jumped again. The protagonist protested. No way, he could die. The girl asked him with a smile, did he really want to disobey the instructor? The protagonist wilted, remembered his recent promise, and sadly answered her that he did not. Time after time, he climbed the wall to the balcony and jumped from it. After some time, Ilsa began to give him a massage. She asked him how he felt. The protagonist, enjoying the action, answered her that he was very pleased. He asked her if she must be very tired, maybe she needed to rest. The girl firmly said that this was not so. Taking care of his body was also part of her job. He was a little nervous from her close presence. She asked him, did she really interest him? The protagonist thought, but it was true. The emperor sent her exactly for this. But out loud, MC told her that this was not so. He was very grateful to her, that she helps him with training. She cannot worry. He will never force her to do something she does not like. She is his instructor. The protagonist thanked the girl for the massage. Ilsa said that now she is his servant, so let him just call her by name. She is an instructor only during training. The protagonist looked at her warmly and thanked her again for everything. The girl laughed. She was very pleased with both his praise and his gratitude. She told him that they would try tomorrow. MC told her that they would. 6 months later, Ilsa told the protagonist with admiration that his body had become so fit. He told her that it was true. However, the fat was going away, but his weight was not decreasing at all. The girl laughed and noted that nothing could be done about it. By going through such training, he was compressing his fat, not burning it. From today, she suggested that he move to the third-floor balcony. The protagonist smiled sadly. Climbing the wall, the protagonist saw that she was calmly walking next to him. He asked her if he could also walk on the wall like that. The maid said that, unfortunately, she would not be able to teach him this. MC thought, well, it was worth a try. Ilsa told him that he shouldn't worry. He was already an amazing person. The protagonist noted doubtfully, well, yeah. When he reached the balcony, she told him that in 3 months, they would move on to the next stage. The girl pushed him again. The protagonist fell again and asked her, so there would be more stages? A few months later, when winter came, the protagonist was standing naked on the street. Ilsa said that today he would run away from Kelpie. He was indignant. What? She didn't say anything about this. It was one of the main events in the game. When one of the heroines lost the battle against Kelpie, Ludwig took her for himself. Ilsa tried to calm the protagonist down. She told him that everything was fine. Even if he gets caught, nothing bad will happen. He was much faster than him, so let him try to dodge. The girl gave the protagonist acceleration with a push. He splashed into the water and was indignant. What was she doing? Suddenly, the protagonist saw Kelpie behind him. He began to dodge his attacks. Ilsa shouted encouragingly at him that he was doing great. Let him continue in the same spirit. MC mumbled back that he would do it. After a while, Kelpie licked his face so much that the protagonist wrinkled his nose in disgust. The maid laughed heartily at this picture. A little later, helping the protagonist out of the pool, she noted that he had worked hard today. Already at the exit from the water, the swimming trunks flew off the protagonist. He was very embarrassed by such a disconcerting incident and cried out in shame. After some time, the protagonist trained with weapons. Ilsa noted that, in her opinion, this style did not suit him. She expressed her confidence that it would be better for him to use a sword and shield. This style would suit him much more. MC apologized to her, but stubbornly said that he had already made his decision. He thought, although there were various weapons in the game, he always chose dual blades. Didn't the heroes look cooler that way? He told her that with dual blades, he would definitely become the strongest. The girl thought in surprise, he would become the strongest? Out loud, she said, although this deviated from their plan, she would not dissuade him. Then, they would continue training with dual swords. The maid warned him that now the training would be 3 times harder. The protagonist even sweated from her words. He spent a lot of time training, alternating climbing to the 5th floor, running away from Kelpie, and training with dual swords. After some time, he happily shouted to his instructor that they had succeeded. The girl laughed happily and congratulated him on his victory over himself. He thought only a year had passed, but he felt like 10 years had passed. Ilsa said with some sadness that this was the end of their training. The protagonist objected to her. He had only lost weight, he still had a lot to learn from her. At first, he wanted to stay away from Ilsa's storyline, but over the past year he had become very attached to her. Now he could not imagine his life without her. He noted that he would be happy if they continued their training. The girl asked him in a quiet voice, "Is he sure about this?" MC confidently answered her that it was so. He was absolutely sure of it. In addition, over a whole year of training together, he had become very attached to her, so he hoped that they could become closer. The protagonist remembered that in his past life, his name was Louis Nikaido. In fact, his name was consonant with the name Ludwig. Therefore, the protagonist suggested that the girl call him Louis from now on. Ilsa told him that she understood him. MC took the girl's hand and suggested that they continue to try together. The maid, in response, squeezed his hand tightly and said that she relied on him. A few days later, the emperor held an event. The protagonist, walking into the hall, directly felt the gaze of those present. Everyone hated him because of his appearance, but now he had changed, and they did not know how to react to this. Ilsa told him that many aristocrats had gathered here who were spreading rumors about him. Is he sure that he wants to stay here? The protagonist looked at her perplexedly and said that it did not bother him. He thought, stop emitting a murderous aura already. The emperor noted with approval that his son had changed a lot. The protagonist thanked him. Otto continued that he, Ludwig, would soon be leaving for the Imperial Academy. He would miss his son very much. His father had given him orders not to let anyone humiliate him because he was the crown prince of the Waldburg Empire. They were all obliged to grovel before him. The emperor turned to Ilsa and noted that no matter what happened, she was obliged to support his son. The maid bowed to the emperor and told him that she understood him. Otto wished them a good evening and left with his women. The protagonist apologized to the girl. She irritably noted that she did not need to be reminded of this all the time. MC, looking at her carefully, thought it was good that she didn't say this to father's face. The protagonist suggested that she try hard at the academy. She smiled and promised him that she would always help him as a maid and as his classmate. The protagonist was amazed. She was 3 years older than him. He could still understand as a maid, but as a classmate? Finally, the day of the entrance ceremony came. The protagonist was a little worried. It was time for him to go. A year ago, he couldn't even imagine that he would change beyond recognition. He didn't even want to remember how Sophia broke off their engagement. The Imperial Academy accepted students from other kingdoms. Would Sophia really study there too? Now, he absolutely mustn't worsen the relations between their countries. It would be best for him to try to avoid any meetings with the princess. At that moment, Ilsa called out to him and told him that she was ready. He looked at the girl and was momentarily speechless by how she looked. Ilsa, noticing his reaction, anxiously asked him if everything was okay. The protagonist answered her that everything was fine. She smiled at him and noticed that he seemed simply surprised by how well the academy uniform suited her. He assured her that the uniform suited her very well. The girl answered that she was glad to hear it and she was very grateful to him. She asked him if he was worried about the entrance ceremony. The protagonist answered that he was. He had to perform in front of the entire academy. He was always nervous about performing in front of a large crowd of people. Ilsa encouraged him not to worry. He would definitely handle it. He asked her if she thought so. He understood that the main thing was to avoid a bad ending. The girl told him that she was simply sure of it. The protagonist promised her that he would try. Ilsa smiled and said that she believed in him. When they arrived at the Imperial Academy, he offered her his hand as they got out of the carriage. Ilsa was embarrassed and told him that he shouldn't do that in front of everyone. The protagonist assured her that everything was fine. He added that in any case, rumors had probably reached the academy by now. He was used to ridicule. Walking through the courtyard, the protagonist saw that everyone was looking at him. They all must have been unable to believe that such an ugly orc was accompanied by such a beauty. They are probably wondering what he is doing here. Ilsa also felt out of place from the attention. The protagonist demonstratively took her hand and offered to go to the place where the ceremony was taking place. Suddenly, he ran into one of the girls and she fell. The protagonist anxiously asked her, "Is she okay?" He immediately realized that it was Sophia in front of him. Her offensive words instantly popped up in his head. The protagonist wondered in surprise, why is she here? Why did she come to study at the Imperial Academy? If the Emperor finds out about this, he will immediately unleash a war. MC asked Sophia, "Is she injured?" The princess assured him that she is okay. She asked him to help her up. The protagonist fulfilled her request and helped the princess up. Sophia thanked him for his help. The protagonist thought ironically, her reaction is completely different from what it was 2 years ago. He apologized to her once more, grabbed Ilsa by the hand and pulled her along, telling the princess to excuse them, but they were in a hurry. Having gone a safe distance, he stopped. The maid, having guessed everything, asked him, "Was it her?" She began to pull her hand out of his. The protagonist asked her to calm down and assured her that everything was fine. It seemed that Sophia did not recognize him. This only proved how much he had changed. He again remembered Sophia's words, how she had once said that she would not marry such an ugly orc. Although he personally did not hear these words, for some reason it became so painful for him. At that moment, Ilsa pressed him to herself. He asked her in surprise, what was she doing? She said with understanding that everything was fine. He did not have to hold back, she understood everything. The protagonist suddenly burst into tears like a child. The girl also had tears in her eyes from pity. MC sheepishly noted, well, because of him, she also started crying. The girl calmed him down. Nothing like that. It was not his fault. She hugged him even tighter. The protagonist told her that it hurt. The maid let him go and sheepishly asked him for forgiveness. When the entrance ceremony itself began, Otto gave a welcoming speech to the students. He said that he congratulated all the new students on entering the Imperial Academy. In the end, he added that that was all he wanted to say. Let everyone study hard, because they are their future. The Emperor told Eleanor to continue the ceremony. The girl continued that she was passing the floor to the students who wanted to give a congratulatory speech. The protagonist thought, looking at her, that she was the daughter of one of the most powerful families in the Empire. She is also one of the heroines that Ludwig subjugated. In the middle of the game, there was a coup event. If he was successfully suppressed, Eleanor would become Ludwig's slave. Meanwhile, the girl suggested that all the students try hard and achieve excellent results. She continued that Ludwig would give a speech next. The protagonist was covered in sweat. His loyal Ilsa encouraged him, wishing him luck. When the protagonist came out in front of the audience, everyone fell silent. The main character plucked up his courage and said loudly that he was pleased to meet them. His name is Ludwig von Waldberg. He understands perfectly well that they all hate him. Unfortunately, there was nothing he could do about it now. He thought that they already knew Sophia. However, he had never met the others. They only knew about him from rumors. Even the aristocrats of the Empire did not know his face. The protagonist continued that over these 3 years, he would try to change their opinion of him. In this academy, they will be able to get to know the real him, and they will understand that all these were just unfounded rumors. He continued that they will be able to see for themselves that he is not an ugly and scary orc. After the speech, he thought about how nervous he was. The protagonist thanked God that all this was over. Surely, they would not take his word for it. All that was left was to give them time. He would do everything possible to avoid a bad ending. Ilsa looked at him with pride, smiling. Sophia thought hard. She never expected that the protagonist could change in appearance to such an extent. Ilsa remarked admiringly that it was great. The protagonist awkwardly replied that, judging by the others' reactions, she interrupted him with a smile and said that he shouldn't worry, They were all just rotten people. He thought that he should talk to her about her harsh words. The protagonist said that he was sure that they would change their attitudes in time. That's right, classes were starting right now, so they should hurry. Suddenly, a knight pushed him hard in the back. He noted in confusion that he didn't have to act so cruelly. Natalia Silvestri, one of the heroines of the game, said that she apologized for her knight's behavior. MC thought that he couldn't believe that she was here too. She is one of the heroines of the game, the saint of the Minerva Church in the sacred kingdom of Latia. When the kingdom of Belga was destroyed by her order, she placed all the blame on the empire and turned the entire continent against them. In other words, she is one of the most cunning and treacherous characters. The girl said with a smile that she was pleased to meet him. She was Saint Natalia of the Minerva Church, and these were her knights, Baptiste and Marco. He replied that he was the crown prince of the Waldburg Empire. She smiled and remarked that she did not think that she would meet such an important person at this academy. He was very different from what she had heard. The protagonist thought excitedly that one could not expect anything else from such a cunning woman. Silver hair and blue eyes, snow-white skin, and pink lips, her appearance immediately catches the eye. Ilsa called out to him with a displeased face and said that they should quickly go to class. Natalia smiled and remarked that they still had things to do, so they would go. When they left, the maid asked with displeasure if he had really fallen in love with a saint at first sight. The protagonist excitedly refused and thought that there was a reason why he should categorically avoid her. She's a mad pervert. He added that she should not worry because he will not even look at the saint. The only girl who can be in his heart is her. After some time, they came to the classroom. Matilda Newman, the teacher, announced that she would be their homeroom teacher. MC, listening to her, thought that she was one of the secondary characters. However, why did he end up in the same class with Natalia? Although the main thing is that Sophia ended up in a different one. Why is she looking at him like that? Ilsa, seeing her look, asked displeasedly. Maybe they should get rid of her? They can complain about her for inappropriate behavior. The protagonist thought that there is another important character in the class. This is the fourth princess of the Brint Kingdom, one of the heroines that appears at the end of the game, Ophelia O'Brint. She was called the Mad Sword Princess. Based on her nickname, she was a character with the strongest attack in the game. She was a great help during the battle with the final boss. But this is not a game now. Now he will not interfere with the events of the game. This is one of the important conditions for his survival. After some time, Matilda said that the lesson was over for today. From tomorrow, they will start full-fledged classes, and today they can go and rest in the dorm. The protagonist apologized to Ilsa and said that she must be uncomfortable living in the dorm. She asked in confusion, what is he talking about? She is his maid, and she does not trust anyone to take care of him. He thought that if he becomes the emperor, he will definitely be able to avoid the bad ending. He should meet Ilsa's parents. The protagonist confidently noted that he would definitely make her happy. The girl became very embarrassed and thanked him. After some time, one of the teachers handed him an envelope and said that this was an invitation to a ball that was being held in honor of the new students of the academy. The ball was held for all members of the royal families in the Imperial Academy. Let them definitely attend this event. MC excitedly agreed and, taking the envelope, thought that now he could not get out of it. He did not want to cross paths with them at all, but there would be a lot of characters at the ball who wanted to overthrow him. He said that he understood everything. They would definitely come. The man said that he wished them a pleasant time. The protagonist excitedly called out to the maid and noted that he did not know how to dance at all. She answered with a smile that he should not worry. He could completely rely on her. She would make sure that his dance looked great. He wondered if she really did not want to dance with other people. Ilsa answered with displeasure that no, she would be happy to spend all her time with him. MC excitedly agreed, and after some time, they, dressed in festive clothes, came to the ball. He, holding the girl's arm, thought that he felt a strange feeling. Ilsa looked the most beautiful of all in this room. He was sure that everyone would want her to be their partner. The protagonist excitedly asked if maybe he shouldn't have come. She exclaimed in bewilderment. What was he talking about? Without him, the crown prince, she was sure that the ball would not have even started. He nervously thought that he was of course happy to hear this, but he could literally feel all their gazes. At that moment, Eleanor came into the hall and said with a smile that she thanked them for gathering today. She hoped that everyone would be able to have a good time. The protagonist, looking around, noticed that no one was dancing. The maid replied that she thought they just couldn't decide on the first dance. After all, there was such an important person like him in the hall, and also, let him look over there. He looked to the side and noticed that it was Professor Matilda and the other teachers. He thought that everyone was trying to observe the rules of decency in front of the professors. She asked with a smile, why don't they dance? The protagonist excitedly extended his hand to her and asked if he could ask her to dance. Ilsa agreed, and they became a couple. He nervously asked if he was doing everything right. She happily noted that he was doing well. MC, looking excitedly at his feet, thought that he just wouldn't step on her foot. The girl called out to him with a smile and pointed out that during the dance he should look into his partner's eyes. He nervously replied that if he was distracted, he could step on her foot. Ilsa replied that there was nothing to worry about. Let him not worry about the little things and look only at her. The protagonist thought shyly that she was so beautiful that it was hard for him to take his eyes off her. He felt sorry for her that she had to dance with such a clumsy person like him. After a while, he noticed that she must be tired. He thought that one dance would be enough for today. Ilsa agreed with a smile and removed her hand. The protagonist thought that there were more suitable partners for her. He approached the waiter and noticed that he was so nervous that he wanted to drink. She replied that they needed to rest a little. Suddenly, Sophia came up to him and asked with a smile if he would give her one dance. MC thought excitedly that his body was shaking. Even after the engagement was broken, she continued to spread dirty rumors about him. But as soon as he changed a little, she immediately wanted to be friends. He is so drawn to just tell her everything to her face. For Ludwig, this was a very traumatic experience. That's why he feels this way. The girl noted with a smile that the next melody was about to start. Ilsa called out to her with displeasure and said that today she would be the only one to be Mr. Ludwig's partner. Sophia asked in bewilderment, was it really her? She was just his servant. The girl introduced herself with displeasure and stood in front of the protagonist. He, watching this, was surprised to think that she did not even bow to her. Because of him, she was very upset. The princess asked, was she really that stupid? This guy is a member of the royal family, so she is clearly not suitable for him. In the past, she had unreasonably offended him, and now she realized that she was wrong. Let her finally understand. Some girl from a fallen family should not be near the prince. Moreover, she is just his plaything. MC angrily spilled wine on her and shouted, let her shut up. He really was a freak 2 years ago. She can insult him as much as she wants, but let her not dare to mock his dear Ilsa. She always supported him. He was incredibly lucky that she became his servant, and she never judged him by all those dirty rumors. Suddenly, Eleanor came to them and told him to stop this. She saw everything that was happening. Despite the loud screams of Lady Sophia, he acted very rudely towards her. In addition, his servant showed obvious disrespect to a member of the royal family. This should not be allowed under any circumstances. She hopes that he will punish her accordingly. At the ceremony, he made a very dignified speech, however, his action. The protagonist interrupted her and exclaimed that this is how real he is. He won't remain silent when his beloved girl is insulted, and he won't apologize for it. He wondered what kind of person he would be if he couldn't protect the one who always believed in him, and he didn't care, even if he pushed himself to a bad ending. The protagonist took the maid's hand with a serious face and added that he was sorry if they were disappointed after seeing what he really was. But he was disgusted by people who use their status to belittle others. He would not tolerate such things. He took the girl's arm and left the hall. After a while, they got into the carriage. Ilsa said upset that she was very sorry. MC exclaimed, let her stop. She did nothing wrong. He is the one who should apologize for letting this happen, so let her forgive him. The girl excitedly grabbed him and shouted that it was not his fault. It was because of her that he got into this situation. The protagonist laughed and noted that they were sitting and apologizing to each other. She had protected him from Princess Sophia, and he was very grateful to her. The maid, with tears in her eyes, replied that he had protected her too, and she appreciated it very much. He noted with a smile that they were very similar in this, so thank her for her support. After some time, when it was already dark, the protagonist returned home and lay down on the bed, and then said that now he had definitely turned all the heroines against him, and that he would not be able to avoid the bad ending. Although he had gotten rid of his ugly appearance, his character remained the same as the hero from the game. He thought that he would be able to gradually change their opinion of him, but now it was unlikely to work. They all saw how he splashed a drink on Sophia, but he does not regret anything, even if everyone will forever perceive him as an orc. Making friends with Sophia was a stupid idea from the beginning. Since everything turned out like this, maybe there is another way to avoid a sad ending. But again, he does not regret anything. Defeat in the war, rebellion, the list of endings is still very long. And what is he thinking about? He needs to make every effort to avoid death, and now it's time for him to sleep. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. MC went to open the door sleepily and wondered who it could be at this hour. Was there really anyone else here besides the maid? Ilsa was on the threshold, saying that she apologized for coming so late. Could she come in? He wondered in surprise. Was she wearing a limited edition transparent nightgown? The protagonist shyly let her in and asked what happened. She replied that she had been thinking about what happened at the ball all this time, and she wanted to thank him again. He said that, as he had already said, nothing terrible had happened. The girl pressed herself against him and noted that she had nothing to offer him except her body. Therefore, he could do whatever he wanted with her. After all, he himself said that she was his favorite girl. The protagonist was shocked and wondered if she was really ready to go that far. He sheepishly noticed that she was shaking all over. Ilsa answered with an awkward smile that it was her first time. The protagonist stopped her and, putting her clothes on, said that she shouldn't offer such a thing, Even as a token of gratitude, she answered in bewilderment that this was all she had. He explained that such a thing could only be offered to a person she truly loved. It was already late, so she should go to bed. The maid asked if she could at least sleep with him tonight. The MC sheepishly thought that he couldn't just kick her out, he needed to calm down. He approached the bed and answered that she could lie down here and he would sleep on the couch. Ilsa jumped on him and exclaimed that she did not agree. She wanted to sleep together. At least today, she wanted to be in the same bed with him. After some time, they lay down. The girl happily noted that she did not even believe that they were sleeping in the same bed. This was the first time they would sleep together. The protagonist worriedly thought that he needed to calm down, otherwise his inner orc could break out. After some time, he nervously wondered when she would wake up. He could hardly contain himself. Suddenly, Ilsa called out to him and wished him a good morning, and then noted that yesterday she was so happy that she could not fall asleep. MC sheepishly agreed with her and wondered if she had really been watching him all night. The girl pressed herself against him and said that she was very happy. He nervously began to get up and noted that it was time for him to get up. He had a lot of classes today. She can sleep some more. He'll go to class alone. After a while, the protagonist went outside and noticed that he hadn't slept at all. While he was holding back his inner orc, he thought that he was already quite fit. Maybe he didn't need any additional training at all. He had no strength at all. No, he couldn't relax. If he got fat again, the maid would be very offended. And anyway, he still had classes at the academy today. Suddenly, he bumped into Ophelia, who was training with a sword. The protagonist bowed his head in excitement and said that he apologized to her. He didn't want to interrupt her training. She replied that it was a common courtyard, so it was okay. But how did he know her name? He explained with an excited smile that they were classmates. Besides, it would be rude not to know the crown princess of the kingdom of Brint. The protagonist thought that she would think that he was following her. Ophelia smiled and noted that she was pleasantly surprised. What was he doing here so early in the morning? He thought happily that he had managed to avoid a misunderstanding. MC replied that he wanted to train a little. The girl asked if she could watch him train. He excitedly exclaimed that no, he was terribly shy when people looked at him. Besides, he didn't want to distract her from her work. Ophelia smiled and replied that she was just taking a break, so he shouldn't worry. The protagonist thought in horror that he didn't want to train with the crazy princess. Why was she interested in him? The girl said with a smile that he should start. He sighed heavily and, having agreed, thought, and how could he refuse her? The protagonist crawled along the wall and fell, and then began to rise again, and thought, why was she staring so intently? After 30 minutes, the girl asked in confusion, does he always come here for training, and all he does is climb up the wall and jump down? He nervously agreed, and thought that he had said the same thing to Ilsa, not the first training. Ophelia, with a thoughtful face, noted that he did not look like the one she heard about. MC wondered, did this mean that the rumors reached her too? She added that it seemed that she was very wrong about him. Suddenly, a maid appeared behind him and called out to him. He wondered in fear, was she following him? He remembered that when Ilsa's obedience reaches 300%, if any other heroine's obedience rises to 100%, this leads to the murder ending. In the game, it was written that Ludwig died from an unknown killer, but it was definitely a maid. She is a real yandere. Could she really kill him now? Maybe it was a mistake to be so close friends with her? Ilsa herself, with a false smile, menacingly asked why he was with her. Ophelia, seeing her, asked with a smile, was she his servant? The girl agreed and introduced herself. The princess noted that she was very lucky, since she served such a good master as Ludwig. She bowed her head and thanked her shyly. MC, perplexed, asked what she meant. Ophelia answered that, as she said, he was a good man. He thought in surprise that his reputation at the academy was below the plinth. Everyone considered him an ill-mannered bore. They could even send a hired killer after him. Maybe she was not at the ball? If she was a member of the royal family, then she probably heard how he acted Sophia. Ophelia noted with a smile that in order to protect the pride of his servant, he was not afraid to go even against their president. He intrigued her with this. Okay, it was time for her to go. She wished him a successful training. The maid said that there were such aristocrats. The protagonist was surprised to think that he had not expected such a turn of events. He did not think that the first of all the heroines of the academy to show interest would be Ophelia. Ilsa asked with a smile, maybe this time they would double the load? Let him answer yes. He excitedly exclaimed and wondered why she was suddenly in such a bad mood. He could really die. After some time, she came up to him and noticed that his uniform was wrinkled. The protagonist thought that it smelled very good. The girl said with a smile that she had finished. After that, they came to the academy and went into the classroom. Ophelia, seeing the protagonist, greeted him with a smile. He excitedly wished her a good morning. Suddenly, Natalia entered the office and asked with a smile, have they become friends yet? MC worriedly thought, please don't let her bother him. Holy Knight Baptiste looks at him with disdain. What did he do? It would be better if he followed Marco's example. He is incredibly kind and always ready to lend a helping hand. Ophelia hugged him with a smile and said that it was true. They trained together and became friends. He nervously thought that they just met by chance. Ilsa has that scary look again. Please let her stop. Natalia smirked and replied that she was very jealous. She would like to join him too. However, she cannot skip the morning prayer. The protagonist thought with disgust. These are noble words, but he knows what she really did. Ophelia noted that if she wants, she can join them at any time. The girl asked in surprise, "Is that true?" The goddess Minerva is the goddess of war and fertility, so she will teach her how to wield a sword. MC thought that this crazy princess did not choose the best company. It seems that the other heroines, except for Sophia, are friendly with him. Besides, they are all in the same class. At that moment, Matilda entered the classroom and announced that they were starting the lesson. After some time, when the school day was over, the protagonist thought with relief. Finally, the lessons were over. Suddenly, Ilsa approached him and warned with a serious face that from tomorrow, training in the yard is prohibited. She is waiting for his answer. He immediately raised his hand to his temple and exclaimed that he understood everything. After that, the protagonist thought, why did she start acting weird now? After some time, when it was already dark, he began to train with a sword and remembered how the maid asked him if he was sure. Before mastering the dual blade style, he must improve his fencing skills. She prepared a training sword for him. MC, swinging his sword, thought that his weight is now about 5 times more than normal. Since he has already gotten used to his weight, it's time for him to start honing his fencing skills. At first, it's better for him to just swing his sword. After going through hard training, he will be able to master dual blades and become the strongest warrior in the empire. After some time, he made 1,000 swings and thought with a smile that he had a feeling of nostalgia. He did not think that he would have to go through this suffering again. He remembers what he had to go through last year during training with Ilsa. He still has to do repetitions on his right hand. Suddenly, Ophelia came up to him and asked admiringly, "Does he train even at night? He has a very strong spirit." The protagonist excitedly asked what she was doing at such a time, and behind the dorm, she answered with a smile that she was of course going to training. It seems that they even think alike. He wondered in disbelief. Had she really come all this way to find him? Ilsa would be very angry if she saw them together. Ophelia pointed out that if he wanted to practice swinging, he should hold the sword with both hands. Even if he wanted to use a one-handed grip, he should not forget the basics. The girl came up behind him and, pressing herself against him, said that he should hold the sword in both hands. If he holds the sword like this, the protagonist, feeling this, thought with wild excitement that she was too close. He needed to clear his mind. She asked him discontentedly if he was listening to her. He nervously agreed and thought that he had forgotten what this game was. If this continued, he might accidentally give in to these desires. Ophelia called out to him and asked if his maid was there. Maybe she was busy right now? MC excitedly agreed and thought that he would go to sleep as soon as the lights went out. He wanted Ilsa to have a good rest, so he shouldn't worry her. The girl asked with a smile if they could train together. They would definitely have more fun together. The protagonist bowed his head and replied that he lacked the skills to match her. She replied with a smile that at least he was training hard. She thought that they would soon be able to spar on equal terms. He excitedly exclaimed that she was overestimating him too much. Ophelia replied with a sad face that she was sorry to hear that. The protagonist thought that even if she put on a cute face, he would not fight her. She remarked that she couldn't believe that anyone was spreading false rumors about him. His appearance was also significantly different from what she had heard. She was pleased to see him giving his all to training. She also heard that he was an ugly orc and also very lecherous. In any case, he was definitely not that kind of person. MC looked at her in surprise, thinking that he had seen this expression before. In the story of Ophelia, she lost in the Battle of the United Armies and was captured. At that moment, she said that although they lost, they did their best, so she did not regret anything. In the present, the protagonist chuckled and thanked her, thinking that whether it was a game or reality, this was the cheerful girl he knew. Ophelia said with a smile that she would find another way to persuade him to a duel. He asked in confusion, was there something wrong with her? She answered with a smile that nothing. Let him hold his hands correctly and fully concentrate on training. The protagonist answered in surprise that he understood everything. The next day in the dining room, Ludwig said that yesterday he accidentally met Mrs. Ophelia and they trained together. Of course, at that moment, he was thinking only about her. It was very late and he did not want to disturb her. Ilsa glared at him menacingly and he thought about her look. If this continues, then he will not be able to avoid the ending of death at her hand. Suddenly, a joyful Ophelia ran up to them and wished them a good morning. Yesterday was fun, right? The protagonist thought in bewilderment. Why now? She approached him and persistently asked if he had forgotten the basics of the sword. The protagonist thanked her in confusion. Ophelia said sarcastically, like Ilsa is the prince's mentor. She asked, does that mean she can handle the sword well? Ophelia answered that she can count as she wants. Ludwig thought in bewilderment. What kind of situation is this? She asked smugly. If this is so, then why don't they have a duel after class? If she can satisfy her, maybe they will become regular training partners? Ilsa wondered if this was a joke in their kingdom. The protagonist thought with fear that it was very dangerous to joke about this battle-crazy girl. He apologized and awkwardly asked that Ilsa would be a little busy after class, right? Ophelia wanted to say something, when suddenly he interrupted her and confusedly noted that he also had important business. What a pity. Ophelia asked, nothing can be done about it. but in that case, how about tomorrow? Ludwig asked. Tomorrow he is free. She smiled happily and Ilse called out to her and asked why she was so obsessed with duels. The protagonist thought about the fact that she had muscles instead of brains. Ophelia looked at him with displeasure and asked, did he just think of something rude? He exclaimed confusedly, of course not. She said that everything was simple and she wanted to fight a strong opponent. Ludwig mentally said that this was the same as saying that she liked to fight. Ophelia noted that only by crossing swords can one truly know a person. Therefore, she wants to know the true identity of the one called an ugly orc. She came to her senses and noted that it was time for her to go and ran away. The protagonist thought in bewilderment that perhaps she had reasons for wanting to fight them so much. Ilse called out to him and asked if he really planned to fight Mrs. Ophelia. The protagonist smiled and asked if she would help him avoid her today and tomorrow. Ilse smiled happily and agreed. Meanwhile, after class, she asked if they could go here. Ludwig agreed and walked forward and noticed Natalia. Ilse called out to him and he asked why they didn't go somewhere, and she agreed with him. After a while, the protagonist exclaimed in surprise on the main square. It was so crowded. Ilse asked if it was his first time in the imperial capital. He agreed. He couldn't leave his house before because of rumors, and after she arrived, they were busy training. Had she been here before? His parents' house was on the outskirts of the imperial capital. Is there some kind of holiday today? There are so many shops here, and everything looks very tasty. She pointed to the counter and asked why they didn't go to that shop. Ilse noticed that this drink was very popular in the capital. Ludwig wondered where frappe came from in medieval Europe. In his past life, he had only seen something like this on TV. The protagonist said that since she recommended this shop, they would try this unusual drink. Suddenly, Natalia noticed Ilse through the crowd, and she exclaimed happily. She didn't expect to meet him here. The protagonist wondered in bewilderment. Where did she come from? They were barely able to escape from her. Ludwig awkwardly said, what a coincidence, he didn't expect to see her here. Natalia asked seductively, was he by any chance queuing for a frappe? Could she join him? Ilse closed it and said coolly that he wanted to have a frappe with her. Ludwig noted that Ilse had said that it was very popular in the capital. Natalia happily said then she would also take one for herself and suggested that they drink it together. Ilse called out to her displeasedly and asked, she didn't want to seem rude, but didn't she have to hurry? She agreed, but in the name of the goddess Minerva, she really hoped that she could get to know the prince better. She thought that this was more important than any other matter right now. Was she right? Ilse asked. Was it so important for the goddess that they become friends? Natalia smugly said, right, the Waldburg Empire and the Holy Church of Minerva are on good terms now. Given that, isn't it natural to try to establish friendly relations with the heir to the empire? Ludwig thought that given the possibility of war with the Western countries, she wanted to get her hands on a strong ally in advance. His predictions were confirmed, however. The protagonist apologized. Although he is the crown prince, it is not a fact that he will inherit the throne. There were many storylines in the game, but none of them led to a good ending or becoming an emperor. He looked at Ilse in bewilderment, and she irritably agreed to spend time with the saint. Natalia happily ran to the counter and said, then she will bring drinks and ask the seller for 3 servings. Ludwig looked at Ilse and asked if she was okay. She agreed. When he becomes an emperor, it is important to have reliable friends. The protagonist changed his mind. Ilse initially became his servant for the sake of the revival of her house. Until he becomes an emperor, she will not be able to achieve this goal. He asked her not to worry. Even if he did not inherit the throne, he would definitely help her family. After such a promise, she would probably feel better. Ilse said that this was not what she meant. Why shouldn't they order one too? Which one would he like? After a while, the seller handed the drink to the protagonist, and he looked at it in surprise, thinking he inserted 2 tubes, and this means. He awkwardly asked the seller for another drink, but he refused, since frappe can be enjoyed by 2 people. The protagonist thought in bewilderment, but is this really normal? Natalia approached Ilse and happily said if she wanted, she could try her drink. She refused and noted that frappe is best drunk when cold. They simultaneously reached for the tubes, and Ludwig looked at her embarrassedly. He thought about her eyes and the fact that she was so close now, when suddenly they looked at each other happily and said, it is so cold and sweet, very tasty. Natalia chuckled and said that her frappe was also very tasty. Would he like to try it? The protagonist thought suspiciously that it would be an indirect kiss. Baptiste called out to her and said that if she did not want it, she could give it to him. Natalia refused him and said that she wanted to share it with the prince. Ludwig thought discontentedly, well, why with him? Baptiste called out to Natalia and said that it was really time for her to go. She happily said goodbye to them, and the protagonist thought that, given his attitude on the day of admission, he definitely did not like him. Ilse said awkwardly. It seemed like they were alone. Ludwig looked at her awkwardly and thought that even though this was just part of her job, she seemed to really like spending time with him. She looked at him fearfully and said that since they were finished, they could go back. Ilse took his hand and noted that the date would not be over until they returned home. It was getting late, so they had to go back. The protagonist thought that she seemed to think they were on a date too. He asked if she would go out for another frappe with him next time. She happily agreed. A week later, since they had gotten in touch with Ophelia, Ilse had been getting criticized constantly. The morning training had been so exhausting that he had even fallen asleep during the session. Ludwig looked at her with displeasure and said, "But she seemed fine." Ilsa said that she had been training since she was a child. Suddenly, the protagonist noticed Sophia and Ilsa asked what was wrong. The protagonist said, "That guy next to her, he had seen him talking to Ophelia a week ago. Could it be that he was spreading dirty rumors too? If possible, he would not want to cross paths with Sophia. However, if she starts to mock him again, he will not be able to restrain himself." They passed each other and Ludwig said it was good that she did not say anything. Ilsa asked if everything was okay and asked him to hurry to the dining hall. Suddenly, a crowd of students formed in front of them. Ilsa thought they were blocking the passage. The protagonist asked with displeasure if they were being too open about their hostility. She said that if he wanted, she could get rid of them immediately. The protagonist exclaimed that there was no need to hurry. What was going on here? They wanted to get to the dining hall and so they had to clear the way. The student said with displeasure that they didn't want the ugly orc to dine with them. Ludwig was puzzled, thinking that the situation was very similar to the behavior of people on the internet. As soon as someone posts a story, everyone immediately starts picking up on it. He laughed and angrily asked, "What's funny?" The protagonist awkwardly covered his mouth with his hands and thought, it seems he couldn't hold back his emotions. Ilsa noticed everything was exactly as the protagonist said. She couldn't believe that fools study at the Great Imperial Academy, who believe in all sorts of nonsense. Suddenly, Ophelia came up to him and exclaimed angrily. She just wanted to say that she was disappointed. She knows everything, and how dare he humiliate Princess Sophia like that? Ludwig, perplexed, asked her to calm down. It was just a misunderstanding. He hadn't even met her since the holiday. Ophelia said that it was a lie, since her servant Thomas told her everything. The protagonist thought, so it's his fault that all this is happening? He said that he doesn't know any Thomas. Ophelia exclaimed angrily, "This is nonsense." She could not imagine that he would turn out to be such a worthless person. Ludwig said that he really did nothing, and that night he was with Ilsa until the morning. The students looked at her and said, "She is a toy of an ugly orc." The protagonist exclaimed with displeasure that he never touched her, even when she came to his house. Unexpectedly, Ophelia hit him and said contentedly that they can only find out the truth with their swords. He noted that they know about his level of swordsmanship, so he is not their opponent. Ophelia noted that if he is so afraid, then they can attack together. However, if he refuses the duel, then this will only confirm his guilt. Ludwig agreed. But Ilsa tried to stop him. He said that he accepts her challenge and will make them regret insulting Ilsa. Ophelia smiled smugly and said that she would wait for him at the training field after class. After a while, the protagonist came out in uniform. He grinned and said that his swords were finally ready, because they were created by his special order. These are his special weapons, the twin blades of Blossom. Ilsa called out to him and wanted to tell him that it was because of her that he had to decide to do this, when suddenly he interrupted her and said that there was no need to stop him. He would not allow anyone to bully her and asked her not to worry. He would never lose to Ophelia and victory would be his. The protagonist came out to the training field and Ophelia greeted Ilsa. Since he was here, she was glad that he did not run away. Ludwig looked around and thought, how many people were there? Was the whole academy gathered to watch their duel? Do they want to see how Ophelia will beat him? She noticed his blades and asked, "2 swords? How unusual." The protagonist asked, "Is she against it?" She said so smugly, "Of course not. She hopes that at least with 2 swords, he will be able to entertain her." Ludwig looked at her and thought that she looked very strong. Ilsa thought that no matter what happened, he should not dare to risk his life. He took out his blades and said decisively that he was ready. Ophelia got into a fighting stance and exclaimed that it was well said. She swung her sword and attacked the protagonist, but he managed to block the blow and flew back from the force. He thought, what incredible strength. Ophelia grinned and noted, just think, he was able to withstand her blow. He said that he did not even feel it. He was shaking all over from fear, and from one blow, he could hardly hold the swords. Suddenly Ophelia attacked him, but he was able to block the blow again. He thought that she was swinging this huge sword like a branch. Ophelia threw him aside and thought, what's wrong with him? It's like she's hitting a huge piece of iron, and it's all because of his weird training. Ophelia smirked and said, if he keeps just defending himself, the duel will end soon. She thought he would fall after his first attack. Ludwig smiled and asked, is that true? Ophelia said that she didn't expect him to entertain her so much and thanked him. The protagonist got into a fighting stance and asked contentedly, is that all she can do? He was fine and thought that it was not true, and his whole body was screaming in pain. Ophelia smiled and exclaimed, how interesting. Then they'll start, and asked him to better prepare himself, as this will be her strongest attack. She swung her sword, and a huge magical power of Storm Slash burst out from it. The power of the magic threw the protagonist aside, and he thought that Storm Slash is a powerful skill. It unleashes a devastating attack of the wind element on enemies, but it also has a weakness. After using it, she's incapacitated for 2 exchanges. Suddenly, Ilsa appeared behind her and tried to strike her, but Ophelia managed to intercept the blow and their blades crossed. Suddenly, Ilsa took a step and clamped Ophelia's head between her legs, saying that victory was theirs. Ludwig fell to the ground, when suddenly a saint appeared in front of him and began to heal his wounds. He looked at his hands in surprise and thought, "Are his wounds gone?" Natalia asked. "Is he feeling better already?" He asked in surprise. Why did she heal him? She replied that she just happened to be nearby. The protagonist smiled and thanked her for healing. Natalia asked, "But what is his servant doing?" Meanwhile, Ilsa tried to stick the blade into her body, but the protagonist called out to her and asked her to stop. She threw herself into his arms and asked if he was hurt. Ludwig smiled and agreed. The saint healed him with magic. Ophelia asked with displeasure, had they planned this from the beginning? The protagonist thought that if he had fought her alone, he would have definitely lost.